Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stephen Breach coming to you. I know I'm a little bit late, but I was able to catch this Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. This aired after TLC. I think everybody knows that, honestly, I was a little bit um, out of the mood to watch anything that had to do with professional wrestling. And I can honestly tell you that from the first few minutes of this podcast with Shawn Michaels, I think I would have not wanted to watch this the night after TL or the night of TLC. I apologize. Just right out of the gate, Roman Reigns not being able to beat Sheamus at TLC, even though he did go on and beat the hell out of Triple H for the last maybe 5-10 minutes of the show. It still was the fact that he wasn't champion. And, he got to that stage so many times to the point where I just said, that's it. I give up on this guy. He's not going to be the deal that I thought he was going to be. Even though they put the title on him the next night, it just wasn't. It wasn't the same. But Stone Cold Steve Austin invited Shawn Michaels over. It looks as if they're actually filming these on the Broken Skull Ranch in Stone Cold Steve Austin's, I guess, bar setting that he has at his own house, which is pretty cool. Because I honestly thought when I saw the commercial that they had built him a set at WWE Studios, and I thought it looked kind of hokey, honestly. But once I found out that this is actually Stone Cold Steve Austin's house, and it's like these guys are coming to him and they're actually sitting down and they're having a conversation, I think it's pretty cool. I think it's the Shawn Michaels episode as well as the Ric Flair episode are already shot. That are already in the can. I don't know if they filmed them back to back or how they're going to do it. But these were pretty cool, intimate conversations of just being a fly on the wall between Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels. There's no earpiece for Steve Austin to have to bounce off of. They probably went in and they edited this a little bit to fit for time or something like that. But I like it, but I don't think I like it as well as I like it when it's live. And I think everybody knows the problem of Stone Cold Steve Austin with the Steve Austin podcast, with it being live. He even made it a joke earlier on in the show that basically they didn't want to talk about hunting the whole time because he was looking to save his job. I think everybody knows that Steve and Brock Lesnar got a lot of heat, not from WWE, but from wrestling fans not giving them what they wanted. Not having an all-out physical altercation or a physical brawl, setting up a match between WrestleMania 32. The Brock Lesnar podcast with Stone Cold Steve Austin in a lot of people's minds was a fail. They didn't really talk about a lot of things that people wanted to see them talk about. They didn't get to see what they wanted to see. It just didn't link up with what everybody's expectations were going to be. So it is what it is. They got on there. Austin said, we have no real plans about what we're going to talk about. I got a stack full of papers here full of all of your accomplishments throughout your career. We talk about this. That's fine. We get off topic and we just start talking about, whatever. That's fine. If you want to start asking me questions and we'll talk about me, that's fine too. Whatever happens, happens. And Shawn Michaels opens it up that they could talk about what they talk about the most and what they have the most in common. And of course, that's being a rancher with white-tailed deer and hunting. And Stone Cold Steve Austin says that basically not everybody likes to talk about hunting because there's people who like it, people who don't like it. It sets people off in a wrong direction about a lot of things. But they start talking about wrestling, and everybody was like, "Yes, let's get down to this." And then Shawn Michaels brings up the fact that there's things going on in his life that people don't really understand. His son's 15. He wants to be a computer graphic artist designer, which I think is what Pinko wants to do. I think that's what Pinko's at college for right now. But there's things going on over in Paris that are really affecting Shawn Michaels' son, and he's thinking about enlisting because he feels that even if he has to go over there and he has to fight the fight and he has to give up his own life, if it saves one innocent person from dying, Shawn Michaels' son feels that that's worth his life, and that's that scares the shit out of me. I know I don't have sons; I have daughters, but to think that I would lose them for something like that, um, you know, somebody who doesn't have kids, they probably wouldn't understand that. But somebody who has kids, That's some real scary shit. And I mean, that just sort of puts it in perspective of, Steve Austin invited Shawn Michaels over to start talking about professional wrestling, and some real shit happened. And Shawn, you could see it, bearing on him. He's a real emotional guy, and he didn't tear up, but it was as close as we're gonna get. They were able to steer it over to start talking about WrestleMania 24. Um, Shawn Michaels got to have the last match with Ric Flair before he retired. And that was honestly a real, big deal. Shawn Michaels grew up watching Ric Flair, one of Shawn Michaels' friends, that they grew up watching wrestling together. Gave him a call that week of WrestleMania 24 and tried to put everything in perspective. Like, did you really think that it was going to turn out like this? We spent Sundays, sitting on your living room floor watching Ric Flair wrestle, and here it is, you're going to wrestle in his last match. And Shawn super kicked Ric Flair 3 times that day. But everybody remembers the last one where he got in the corner and he told Ric Flair that he loved him, super kicked him. And as the 3 count hit, Ric Flair just emotionally broke down crying right down there on the mat. And Shawn got down on his hands and knees. He kissed Ric Flair on the forehead, told him that he loved him, and that was the best career that everybody has always had. Shawn Michaels has always told everyone that Ric Flair is the greatest. Ric Flair always tells everyone that Shawn Michaels is the greatest. And I don't know where you put those guys into their career, but that was one hell of a match. From there, they immediately go into talking about the screw job. Stone Cold Steve Austin puts over Bret Hart. He says that it's hard to pick who's number one, number two, number three. But when you talk about Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and Ric Flair, that's a hard conversation to have over who's the greatest. And they had a match at Survivor Series 1997. That's probably one of the most talked about matches in the history of professional wrestling, whether if it was real, whether if it was fake. Every time they talk about this, they add a little bit more to the discussion, and every single time they talk about it, it gets a little bit more fishier and fishier to me. I've never been one to believe that everything that they tell us about the screw job is 100% dead on. I know that there's a documentary showing Bret Hart's side of the story. WWE has told their side of the story 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different times. Every time the story changes just a little bit, whether if it's the story that they told on the Best of Survivor series, or this story that they told in the confidential episode with Shawn Michaels, saying that he was involved and he knew what was going down and he had been lying for years. And Shawn on the podcast said that that was the hardest thing, and he said that Vince wanted to take all the heat. Vince wanted to say that it was his idea. He's the guy who said ring the bell. He wanted Shawn to say that he had nothing to do with it, and that's exactly on the documentary. Shawn's in the back, and he's saying, as God is my witness, strike me right now. I knew nothing what was going to go on in there." And Shawn says that the day of the Survivor Series, him and Bret had a real sit down, heart to heart conversation when they went through planning out the match. And they said that they squashed a lot of things. And I've never heard this side of the story from Bret Hart. I know that you see before, during, and after on the Bret Hart documentary. In the shadows, or I can't remember what it is. I haven't seen it in a while, but Brett pretty much comes out and he says that he hates Shawn Michaels throughout the whole thing. Hates everything that Shawn stands for, whether if it's his character or the way he is backstage, the boy toy. There's a lot of heat there. And Shawn's trying to say that they never hated each other. I believe that they hated each other. Maybe there was a point when Shawn, took Christ to his life, and he forgave Brett, and he was looking for Brett's forgiveness, something that probably wouldn't come until Brett came back to the WWE and they had that conversation in catering, and they had that handshake in the middle of the ring. It took a long time to get there. They might not hate each other now, and they might be able to sit down and have commentaries and conversations for the WWE Network, and they sold that DVD that was really good with Jim Ross. That Shawn Michaels honestly looked really bored during, and Bret Hart looked like he cared a whole lot more about the situation than Shawn Michaels did. But I don't know. I think that Shawn's just trying to put this in the past and make it go away. We could talk about the Montreal screw job for an hour and a half, and we still wouldn't get anywhere because there's people that believe that it's 100%. What happened in the ring, what we saw on television is real. And there's people like me who think that, it was set up to make everybody look good. It was set up to, keep Shawn, or I guess make Shawn the champion, have Bret Hart, who was a WCW employee at the time, look good and then go to WCW and be one of the hottest things in professional wrestling. It made Vince McMahon one of the biggest heels in professional wrestling. It changed the landscape of wrestling to the point of where so many years later in 2015, almost going to be 2016, and we still are running with a heel storyline of a heel promoter, which was set up in 1997 because of the Montreal Screwjob. That was that good that every company has run the storyline 2 or 3 times a year. And WWE has never really let go of this, whether if it's Vince or Triple H or sort of general manager, Vicky Guerrero, John Laurinaitis, all sorts of different things like that. But the conversation sort of bounced around to a lot of different things. They talked about the click. They talked about, who's the greatest of all time. But it was just a really good conversation between Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin. I wouldn't go as far to say that it's one of the best. Definitely the Vince one was really good. The Triple H one with Chris Jericho was good. Um, Really, really fun stuff. Or was Triple H with Austin? I think Triple H was with Austin. But Jericho did have Triple H on the podcast on iTunes. So it is what it is. We'll see what it is. I think that Stone Cold Steve Austin's going to win the Slammy for the special of the year on the WWE Network. I'm always looking forward to where they go from here. We've seen how it happens when he has sort of a mid-card person on there like Paige. But it seems that as if they've done every major person. I guess Bret Hart would probably be one of the next legends to get on the show. Maybe they'll let Jim Ross do an episode. I'm not 100% sure. He is with Podcast One, and it would probably, hopefully, open the door and see if Jim Ross can get let back into the WWE family. But we'll see what goes down. Stone Cold Podcast, I give it 4 stars out of 5. Peace out, everybody. Oh, I forgot. I don't have a touch screen. Fuck me.